There's a belief in the spiritual community that everybody is just accepted as true. And nobody that I've heard has ever questioned why it is the way that it is. But this belief, which is actually really foundational to a lot of healing practices, is what's actually keeping you from creating the life that you're truly meant to live and the abundance that is actually available for you. So if you've done years of healing work and you still feel like your outer life doesn't reflect the freedom, the joy, the abundance that you know should be available for you, then it's probably because you've accepted this lie as the truth. And you didn't get it wrong. It was not intentional. It's actually what a lot of spiritual teachers out there believe to be true based on their own experience. And in fact, I actually used to believe exactly the same thing until maybe about a year ago when I finally discovered the truth. Now, just before we get into it, if you've not come across me before, my name is Marley Late. This is the Enlightologist channel, and on this channel, we go deep into the architecture and the mechanics of spirituality, not just thoughts and beliefs, but the true mechanics and architecture of how your reality is created. So if you've been on the spiritual path for a while and you've done all of the inner work, the shadow work, the clearing of belief patterns, the subconscious thoughts, the somatic level, the nervous system work, all of the modalities that you get your hands on, and if you still feel like you're stuck and your life really hasn't gotten to where you wanted it to be, then this is the right place for you. And on top of that, you probably know that you're here for a reason. You feel like you've got something to contribute to the world, but you just can't quite understand why everything is so difficult. Why, no matter how much healing you do and how much internal work you do, you just never seem to escape all of the same issues. You probably have a catalog of them by now. You know them inside out. You know when they show up, and yet you're still in them. And this is what everybody in the spiritual community has accepted as normal. And I'm here to tell you that that is the lie. We are not meant to keep healing in a spiral, always addressing the same issues, but just at that higher level. That's actually spiritual bypassing. It's not up-leveling. It's just a coping mechanism because let's think about it. If we're in those old patterns, it's frankly just too painful to admit that all of that healing work has just not allowed us to break out of those patterns. Until now. Because I can say with 100% certainty, it actually is finally possible to break out of those old patterns, to complete your karma, close those patterns, and literally rewrite your story, live your life in a way it was always meant to be. So that's what we're going to talk about today, but there's a few things that we need to cover as part of that. And the first part is literally why some people do seem to have it more challenging. Not everybody is having the same experience. And usually the challenges that you're experiencing is the reason that got you onto the spiritual path in the first place. And then what drives that? What is the architecture and the soul blueprint behind that? But that's not actually what creates our reality. So we need to talk about what actually creates our reality that nobody actually talks about. And then finally, why is this actually finally available now? We've only had access to the first two. Why is it finally starting to shift for us? Because I've seen so many people recently that say they feel stuck, even after they've done years and maybe even decades of healing. And they're getting really frustrated that this has all been a lie. And maybe you feel like you're ready to make that bigger mark on the world and you just don't know how to break through There's so many people in that place right now. So if you know anybody who's in that place, this is for them as well. So please share this. So let's start with why some people seem to have so much more of a difficult experience here. Because you may resonate with you've done so much work and you've received so much less than other people. And it just doesn't seem fair. And it really is true. You're not making it up. I can absolutely vouch for it. Because those are usually the people that I tend to work with. They work so hard and they know that they're here for a reason, but they don't seem to understand why they've incarnated into such difficult situations. And the reason why they have created those difficult situations that they've grown up in, lived in their entire life, is because they actually have a specific purpose here on Earth. They're actually part of a group that are called the Blueprint Changers. Now, the Blueprint group is actually a soul group, and they may be star seeds, they may not, but it's a specific group of souls that came together that collectively engineered this human experience, the earth, humans, as a place for us to learn how to express ourselves here in this density. So the blueprinters are actually the group that literally created that. They know how humans operate. And then they would show up on the planet from time to time to tweak and fix a few issues so that they can assist with the rapid evolution of our consciousness from time to time. You've seen there's been growth in our consciousness and leaps forward. And it's because those blueprinters come back, they tweak things, and that then evolves us to the next level. So we're actually in that space at the moment where we've got a lot of blueprint changers who have come back to Earth to exactly do that, to re-engineer the human experience and help us evolve to the next level. They have to do that because they're essentially karmically tied to that original creation. And so to be able to make those changes, they actually have to incarnate into those difficult situations that they're here to fix so that they can help evolve it. So they will actually incarnate into some of the more difficult, the darker issues that have arisen on the planet so they can understand it from the inside out. I mean, once they understand it, they can actually, within themselves, fix the problem, and then they can help other people who are still struggling with this issue. And that's where they can make a massive impact once they've figured out for themselves. But they often come into really unpleasant situations. You know, they will come into lives with victimization, abuse, disempowerment, very challenging situations, limitation, lack. And so they actually end up spending so much time trying to heal themselves that they never get to the point of creating the huge impact that they came here to do. And that is really the obstacle that people with this as a soul group is actually dealing with, because they're not just here to heal it for themselves. They actually hold that blueprint of what is wrong in humanity within their physical bodies. And so they have to heal that blueprint from the inside out. And this is where they're not actually just here to heal themselves. The reason they can make such a big impact with other people once they've healed it is because they then literally carry the blueprint of how other people can do it. And that's where the problem comes in. That brings us to what the blueprint actually is and how it works. So what is it? Our soul blueprint is basically the detailed instruction set of the experiences that we're here to have on Earth. So each of us have our own unique detailed blueprint. It has the exact situations, the exact people, the experiences, the timelines, the challenges, the karmic lessons, everything that we're here to experience on our journey. Now, the blueprint operates on many different levels across the different dimensions. And at the most foundational, it will actually literally create the atoms, the molecules that create our physical bodies. And it gets very detailed at those lower levels. And then as we go higher, we can actually access the much more bigger picture of the reality that we're here to create. So at first, second, third is our physical body. At the fourth dimension is our mind, our thoughts. At the fifth dimension, we start getting to accessing our soul patterns and the lessons that we're here to overcome. At the sixth dimensional level, we get to see the much bigger picture, which is the soul contract. So it's the full, not just the lessons, but the gifts that we bring and the goals that we're here. So it gives us the full picture. But the problem is the blueprint actually has a protective hidden layer that I call the framework layer. And that's where all of those pieces actually come together. And it's not in your mind or your energy body or even in your visible soul field. This framework layer is like a hidden understructure and is that architectural plane of your soul and your consciousness. So it holds all of the codes, the agreements, and the rules that govern your life. Almost like a master control board for your reality. And here's how I like to visualize it. So imagine you're a DJ and you've got this sound control panel in front of you. And so there's all these dials and sliders and buttons and knobs that you can turn. And each one represents a different aspect of your life. Your relationships, your level of abundance, your health, self-expression, the karmic patterns, the soul agreements. Some may even control the level of the freedom, the visibility, and the joy you can experience, or not, as the case may be. So imagine that console, and some dials are turned right up to the highest level, and that creates feedback loops and challenges and difficulties. And some are turned all the way down, so it mutes your potential. And some of those settings may actually be stuck in place with, some tape over it, so you can't even move it because of some old code corruptions or old stories or old soul agreements or vows that may have kept them in place in the past. So this console literally sets the instruction field of how your life is going to be. And you set that before you incarnate here on this planet. So it tells you whether you're going to have a really difficult life, full of difficulties and obstacles, or a really easy life where you can just skate through life without too much of a challenge. You get what you want. And you may know people like that who just seem to make everything that they touch work. Nothing seems to be difficult for them. And that's exactly because they've set these settings before this life. Now, because as a blueprint changer, those settings were turned up because the blueprint changers came here to experience those corrupted codes, the outdated codes, all the things that they came here to fix. If that is still running and that console is set and it's locked at that difficulty setting, then it doesn't matter how much clearing, meditation, healing, whatever you do, because your reality will continue to be based on this framework layer. Like a computer restoring a backup, unless you also reset the rules of this framework layer. You have to literally update the blueprint itself. So this is the framework layer is the plane that actually creates our reality. It's where all of these controls exist. And when you can access it, you can actually see, well, what is active, what's turned all the way up, what's misaligned, what needs to reset, so that all the other layers can actually start flowing in harmony. So, in other words, the underlying operating system the actual hardware, if you like, that all our programs is running on needs to be reset and upgraded, in fact, effectively, for you to be able to fully change your life. And it's really important that this is actually happening right now because it signals that there is a big change in what is available for us and where we're going. We're no longer just focusing on healing or clearing. We're now at a place in human consciousness where we actually get to rewrite the whole architecture. And for blueprint changes, especially so, because blueprint changes actually hold the human blueprint within their own physical body. So when you shift your own framework layer, you're not just upgrading your own physical blueprint, you're actually upgrading the entire fractal for the human collective. So you're literally changing what is possible for others when you do this for yourself. So this is why I believe this is the breakthrough that so many people on the spiritual path have been waiting for. We're done with the healing. We've grown so much. That's just not cutting it anymore. And I know how much this work has changed my own life since I discovered it. So if you've ever felt that you're here for something much bigger than just fixing yourself, if you've sensed that you're actually here to help change the game entirely, but you didn't know how and you didn't know what your purpose was, this work might just be your missing link. So if this resonates, make sure to subscribe because I'm going to be doing a lot more about this framework layer, how to recognize it, how is it keeping you stuck, how does it play out in your life, and also how to actually start resetting this control panel so your outer life actually can finally match the inner changes that you've worked so hard on. Because if you're anything like me, this has been years and decades in the making. So it's really time to stop endlessly clearing and actually start to rewrite our reality.